chat. I'm trying to shove food down my face before we get this going. Welcome in. I figure you probably don't want to hear me chewing, so I've decided I'd leave the mic off. But appreciate it. Welcome in to everybody that's here. Thank you guys. My name is Joe. It is NFLosophy, and we're working on a short week this week. Like this is one of those weeks where it's kind of like the teams that play on. It's kind of like the teams that play on Thursday nights. They just kind of have to figure it out on a short week. Hey, you don't have 6 days anymore in between games. Now you got 3, so you got to figure it out. I'm used to having 2 days in between our recap stream and our preview stream, and normally that gives me a little bit more time to do some work on video, to do some work on the stats and things that I want to get into. And this week we just gotta figure it out, man. Which is perfectly fine. We'll get through it as they do. The best coaches are the ones that typically are able to get through the Thursday night games with a win, right? They figure out how to prepare in a short amount of time, and you come in better prepared than the other guys. Simplify and execute, right? So, welcome in. My name is Joe. I am NFLosophy on Twitch and on Twitter. Thank you guys for coming in. It is typically Thursday night when we do this stream. It is Wednesday night tonight. Mass Granger, welcome in. Glad to have you back. Thank you very much. I like that little emote. Whose is that? I need to get you guys some better emotes. It's one of the things on my to-do list. So I will definitely get you guys some better emotes, especially for the subs and stuff. So welcome in. It is week 9 of the NFL season. Kind of crazy, right? At some point during the second quarter of the games on, it's a Twitch Global emote. Okay. Blood Trail. Good. Oh, okay. Good to know. Gabe, are you a professional on Twitch? Like, are you used to everything that like goes on, like all the emotes and all that type of stuff? Because I feel like you seem to know it pretty well. I wouldn't say a novice, but I'm not an expert on Twitch. I typically I'll have Warzone streamers in the background while I'm doing work during the day or something like that. If it's a slower day, you know, a good amount of stuff. Well, that's good. I'm glad somebody here does, because I sure as hell don't. Appreciate it. Appreciate you guys coming in. Thank you so much for joining. We are week 9 of the NFL season. Super excited about this week. This week, I feel like going through the games today, and having to simplify the process was a pretty interesting thing. I know I didn't get as much time to go and pull in all the different stats, and I had to go kind of off of instinct of a lot of things, and then double check some of my instincts and what I was seeing and what I know about these teams, and a lot of it lined up, which is nice. Free OBJ, free Brandon Cooks crossover. Man, there's a lot to talk about tonight. I don't know if you guys heard, but one of the quarterbacks today actually tested positive for COVID. Not sure if you guys heard that or not. Turns out that particular guy was also unvaccinated after telling the entire world that he was vaccinated, which is actually the bigger story. Like, look, if you test positive for COVID, fine. So be it, right? Like, even if you're not vaccinated, hey, that's your personal choice. Respect that. I personally think that you're crazy if you don't get vaccinated. It's just such a simple thing to do and not have to worry about it anymore. But again, that's my personal opinion. Everybody's got to make their own choice. I said this at the beginning of the pandemic. Like, I thought it was crazy that there were people still going out and going to restaurants and stuff at the beginning of the pandemic. And then I thought about it. And I was like, man, like, if I were a server and a bartender like I used to be, I would be out there in the midst of it just like everybody else. Because, I mean, different people are taking, they have to take different risks, right? Based on the way their life is currently set up. Super fortunate. I get to work from home, can work from an office at home, don't have to go out. Easy for me to sit back and say, look at all the crazies going out amidst all the other crazies and potentially getting COVID. Well, there's some people that have to go out there to earn a paycheck like that, and they just can't sit at home and shelter themselves. So, to each their own. But at the same time, if you do have the resources to be able to get vaccinated, it just totally makes sense, right? So, and if you choose not to because maybe you have a girlfriend who's into homeopathics and makes her own medicine, as she says, and only drinks spring water that she hikes up a mountain to get, and that's the people around you influence you and influence the decisions that you make. And he decided to make a decision. The problem is with a communicable disease or virus, you should probably be open to the people around you about that and not mislead them about whether you're protected against said virus or not. And Aaron Rodgers blatantly misled people when specifically asked, "Are you vaccinated?" He said, "Yeah, I'm immune." And you could chop that up however you want. You can take off the last two words and just say he said yeah to that question, or you could leave it all together and he said I've been immunized. That's what he said. I've been immunized. I'm immunized. You can chop it up and say yeah. He said yeah to that question, so flat out lied. Or you could take in the I'm immunized and he, believes that that's the same thing as vaccinated, which it's technically factually incorrect. It's not. So, you know, what a weird situation, man. And the funny thing is he has not been following COVID protocols for unvaccinated players. They have if you're unaware, in the NFL, unvaccinated players have different rules that they have to follow. That's to protect the greater good of the team. However you feel about it, it's what the players agreed to, what they signed up for, what they must follow in the facilities. However you feel about it, completely irrelevant to the conversation. NFL players and the Players Association, NFL team said, these are the rules that you must follow if you're vaccinated. There is a separate set of rules for the unvaccinated, and they're going to be way more strict. You must get tested every single day before coming into the facility. When you're in the facility, you must wear a mask unless you're eating. When you're outside, you're okay. You must be masked up for interviews unless you are socially distanced outdoors. If you're inside, you should already be wearing a mask. But as long as you're socially distanced outside, you're okay. And it seems like Mr. Aaron Rodgers has bypassed all of those rules and has not been following them. And the Green Bay Packers have allowed him to skirt those protocols. And it's not just the Green Bay Packers, because we talked about this, like, hey, like there's guys that are going up and they're not wearing masks for post-game interviews and stuff like that. That's indoors. It's in little media rooms next to the locker rooms. And guys like Kirk Cousins are going up and doing the same thing, not wearing a mask, even though he's blatantly unvaccinated, admits that he's unvaccinated, which to me is better than lying about it. At least I know I need to keep my distance from you and would prefer to keep my distance from you, just to protect myself and my family. And for Aaron Rodgers, I would think, oh, you're vaccinated, less chance of me to get it. Well, problem is he's not actually, because he lied to everybody. So the joke on Twitter was he doesn't have any family that likes him, so he doesn't have to protect his family, so he doesn't have to get vaccinated. So yeah, that was funny. Jordan Love versus Mahomes is not the matchup I was looking forward to this week. Crossover. I totally agree. I was man, I was hyped about this, and I thought it was going to be a really fun game because I thought the Chiefs are going to be able to figure something out this week against Aaron Rodgers, and Aaron Rodgers is going to be able to play it. Hodzi, welcome back in. Donic's tweet was elite. Crossover, I'm not sure. It might have been the one that I saw, but I'm not totally sure if that's the one I saw. I'm just bitter that Rodgers got AJ Green sick. That's funny. Well, think about it. Devontae Adams probably got Aaron Rodgers sick. Like, we're coming off the Devontae Adams and Allen Lazard thing, and Allen Lazard was apparently close contact. Was apparently close contact as well. And so one of those two probably gave it to Rodgers, and Rodgers probably had it for the game. But the reality is he got lucky and didn't test positive before the game. And by the way, it's 10, right? So it's 10 days that he's out. At least it's 10 days. I think it's 10 days from the last time he tested negative. So there's potential not only that he misses this game, but also potentially next game as well. So it could be 2. And, I look, man, if you're going to be an asshole about it, you get what you get. I don't feel sorry for him. He tried to mislead people. He lied about it. Whether he's vaccinated or not is irrelevant to that, because if you're going to be an asshole and you're going to lie about stuff, then so be it. You get karma serves itself up once again. So Lazard is unvaccinated. That's why he missed the game. Yeah, and I think he was close contact to Adam. So, also, we are really going to get Colt McCoy versus Jimmy G. I mean, possibly Hodzi. I don't think so. I mean, I don't think so. I would anticipate Kyler being there, especially based on the line as it was earlier today. Um, I thought that it was closer than what it should be, but it doesn't seem to indicate a Colt McCoy game for me. Um, so yeah, so we'll see. I don't think Kyler's. I'm not all that concerned about Kyler yet. I was too busy making fun of Aaron Rodgers today um to really dissect the Kyler Murray situation. Not spotted. Let's see. I'm trying. Wednesday's practice not spotted during the media access portion of Wednesday's practice, so he could have come out later. They could be playing that up a little bit. We'll see with Murray, but that's definitely an interesting one as well. And this is one of the things that I might end up missing an injury or two throughout the week because I didn't have time to go through them all. Because normally I have an extra day to do this. So, but welcome in. It is week 9. He has an ankle problem. Gabe. Yeah. So you know what? Let's get into it. So tonight we are going to go through these faster than we've ever gone through them before. This will be the final stream until we get to Sunday and we do our pregame show. Like I said before, we've got a little baby shower going on this weekend, so need an extra little bit of time to prepare for that, which is why we're moving the show up by a day. So appreciate you guys making way in your schedule and joining me tonight. So let's go ahead and let's get into it. And I tried to add these in, and this is why I was a little bit late tonight as well, is because I wanted to make sure to add in the things. So there's still exclamation point odds in the chat. You can always check it that way. But also wanted to make sure that they get put up on the screen for you. So really interesting games this week. I feel like I say that every week though. We'll get through some of these games, some of the games that aren't all that interesting quickly. And then we'll talk about some of the other games more in detail. I really streamlined my notes this week and got in the key highlights. So if there's anything you guys want to talk about, want to go over, anything you guys think that I missed that's super important, please let me know in the chat. All right, so let's get into it. Jets, Colts. Colts -5. These are as of 4 o'clock this afternoon, so lines could have changed. I'll double check as we're going through these just to make sure. But that was still 10.5. But that was as of 4 o'clock this afternoon. So Jets coming off a huge win versus Cincy last week, though you could point to a couple of plays that turned the game in the Jets' favor that weren't really up to them. Namely, the one helmet to helmet and personal foul that was called that gave the Jets a big first down and let them take the lead towards the end of the game. One of the worst calls of the season, if not one of the worst calls I've ever seen. That one was really unfortunate. Basically ends up costing Cincy the win. And so we kind of have to take that game with a grain of salt. I will say the defensive line showed up versus a bad Cincy O-line last week. I thought that was one of the things that jumped out to me in watching the game today. Whenever I watched it back a little bit closer, the Cincy O-line's bad, and I don't think that the Jets D-line, I think the Jets D-line is one of the better units that they have on that team. That's not saying a whole lot because that team is not particularly talented overall, but it is one of the spots that you could say, hey, like they don't necessarily need to focus on this next year or in the draft. This is something that they could probably get away with going into next year. Colts last week. I mean, the Colts are on the come up, right? Like they were improving, they were getting better every week. And then Carson Wentz made sure to give it all back last week. Horrible fourth quarter interception where he tried to throw the ball with his left hand while he's getting tackled. Ends up at a pick six that allows Titans to take the lead. He gets a nice little PI call on I think it was like a 43-yard PI call to get them back down the field. They score, and then he gets the ball a couple of times in OT and just can't move it at all. Titans get it done in OT, kick the field goal. I think the big thing in this particular game for the Colts is the offensive line. I don't think the Jets give Carson any issues. The Colts offensive line isn't bad. I think when they're healthy, they're pretty good. I don't think the Jets are going to give Carson any issues in this particular game on defense. Um, I don't think they can get a good pass rusher, nor do I think that they can a good pass rush, nor do I think that they can stop the run, which I think Indy probably goes to a good amount in this game. I think Carson Wentz has shown himself um, as a guy that he can throw the ball all over the place whenever it doesn't matter, but whenever it comes down to really mattering, oops, I just realized I got to change this. There we go. When it's easy, when it's the middle of the game, when games don't matter, Carson Wentz is just fine. The problem is when Carson Wentz feels the pressure of a game, Carson Wentz crumbles under the pressure. I was actually thinking about this today as I was watching some of the film from last week because I it just feels like I go back to the Eagles and when they won the Super Bowl with Nick Foles, and I'm curious. While I think Carson was playing better than Nick Foles got hot at the right time, and I'm curious if the Eagles win a Super Bowl with Carson Wentz because I don't think he can handle the pressure. Just based off of what I see, when the pressure gets dialed up, he can't stand it, and I don't think that he ends up winning them that Super Bowl. So it sometimes things just work out the way that they should. Gabe, was the pick six better than a safety? I mean, technically yes, but I don't think that there was anything that Carson was doing in that particular play that as he's fallen to the ground, he's like, oh man, you know what? I should throw a pick six instead of a safety because that's a better play. I just think Carson tries to do too much on way too many plays. Take the sack, throw it out of bounds. Don't try to do too much. Don't throw it right to another player. Don't try to like backhand, flip the ball to somebody. I think he's done that 3 or 4 times, at least 2 or 3 times this season, and has been intercepted. So, or technically a fumble was one of them, but it was really an interception. Like it just doesn't. He just tries to do too much way too often. I think Indy can stop the run. I think Indy has a good run defense. For the Jets, Mike White played okay last week, but I definitely don't want to go crazy over one single week. I don't think the Indy defense will have the same struggles that the Cincy defense did. Indy's defense is bad against the pass, but really good against the run. They're first in rush defense DVOA. They're 20th in passing DVOA. For me, it's really hard for me to pick Indy to cover a full 10 points in this game, though. I fully expect Indy to win this one easily, but I don't think I can pick them to win by more than 10. I'll wait to see where this line moves, and then I'll probably have to make that pick on Sunday. You're not Mahomes. Don't try to be him. Even Mahomes tries some. Yeah, exactly. Like I said, I mean, he's Winston. He's Winston inside the red zone at times. When Winston's inside the 10, that's when everything goes haywire for him. He's like, oh, I've got to try to make this play because I'm so close to getting a touchdown. I don't want to just take a sack and kick a field goal. Like he just can't, his brain just doesn't compute that. So for him, you know, um, for him, it's just his brain goes, it kind of glitches out for a minute whenever he is under pressure, and that's exactly what happened last week. So I like Indy to win this one. Not sure that I can cover the full 10.5 with Indy. Total's 46, which feels kind of. I mean. It feels kind of low, but I don't know. I don't know. That's the one I would probably stay away from unless there's any particular like stat that pops out later on in the week that says, hey, like these teams are definitely going to score that much. All right, moving on. Atlanta, New Orleans. Let me make sure. Yeah, okay, we're good. Might have to move those a little bit. Atlanta, New Orleans, Falcons, Saints. Saints -5.5. So just so you know, the final number is whoever the home team is, which is the second team on the screen. So Just same way that it works in the chat, same way that it works on the screen. So Saints New Orleans. So Saints come in with a major question mark at QB, but really is that any different from the last few games? And with Jameis Winston playing, Sean Payton coached his ass off last week against the Bucks. Like that was one of the better games I've seen him coach. He has a backup QB come in. He has to find a way to beat one of the best teams in the NFL with a severely limited pass game, which he kind of had already, but he at least did have the strike up top every once in a while with Jameis, and he did just that. And Dennis Allen deserves a huge amount of credit for that game too. As I thought they did a great job of scheming it up against Brady and Leftwich. Brady, and we talked about this on Twitter a little bit. Like they played a decent amount of too high last week, and I said Brady struggled with it, and people on Twitter, specifically some other Bucks writers, I guess you should say. They're not really beat writers. They write for like the local Bucks websites and stuff like that. One or two specifically were like, yeah, but he still had 400 yards and 4 TDs. And I said, well, that's fantastic. He also had 3 turnovers, which is not what he does. This was one of Brady's worst games of the season, if not his worst game of the season. Outside of the rain game doesn't really count, I would say, against the Patriots. So for me, like New Orleans played very, very well in that game on I would say mostly on defense, but partly on offense as well. I mean, I think they called the offense that they needed to call. Kudos to Peyton to do that. They're like we talked about, their O-line is healthy. Michael Thomas is done for the season. Again, I think that's weird timing. The day after the trade deadline, Michael Thomas says, "Oh, my ankle's still injured, or I just re-injured it, and I've got to get another procedure, and I'm done for the year." Weird timing for that to come out, in my opinion. And there were already rumors that he doesn't want to play for the Saints anyways. So I don't. That one made my spidey sense tingle a little bit. Not really sure where that came from, but they're not going to get any help at the wide receiver position now, unless maybe the Browns release OBJ, which seems like a possibility at this point. And then maybe the Saints can get him on the cheap. I think he would be an interesting fit there. I don't know if there's talent trumps all. If OBJ ends up on the free agent floor, somebody's going to scoop him up. The New Orleans defense is legit and pretty much fully healthy at this point. There's no major question marks in terms of injuries. The big question for this game is who do the Saints play at QB? Hill is still in concussion protocol, but supposed to be the guy if he's available. It looks like he's moving through that. Simeon came in last week. He didn't look fantastic, but he did enough to not lose the game last week. I think he played all right. People are saying that he had a great game. I don't think he had a great game. There was a few turnover worthy plays that he had that weren't turnovers and could have changed the complexion of the game. Either way, I think they'll coming into this game they'll lean heavily on the defense, the Saints will, and they'll lean on the short game, run game, quick passing game, those type of things to get it done. Like I said, playing Atlanta is always good for a quarterback. For Atlanta, they hit a speed bump versus Carolina last week, and I think that was an easy one to see coming. Carolina matched up pretty well, and the funny thing is, so did the Saints actually against Atlanta. Atlanta offense is going to struggle to move the ball against a good defense, especially one that can pass rush. And Atlanta still has a bad offensive line. Let's not forget that. They only have Pitts and Patterson as weapons, so they need to find some type of rushing game outside of Patterson. And they need to figure out some type of quick passing game. Gage has been okay, but they're going to struggle without Ridley. They'll need to play. They basically need to play this game like the Lions did against the Rams and be super aggressive and buy themselves some extra chances by going forward on fourth down, converting those opportunities. And that's going to help them keep it close. And maybe they can get lucky somewhere in the end, get a turnover, something like that against one of these backup quarterbacks and potentially make some noise towards the end of the game. As we talked about last week, Atlanta's defense can make any QB look good, so that bodes well for the Saints as well. probably still going to be a pretty big Alvin Kamara game. New Orleans should cover this no matter who starts at QB. A 5.5 doesn't feel like a lot. There's a potential for like an Atlanta backdoor cover, but the Saints just feel so much better. And they're so well coached. And I don't think Arthur Smith is there yet. OBJ to Tampa Bay game? Nah, I don't think so. I think they still like Antonio Brown. And they like their fourth and fifth receivers. I mean, when you got Scotty Miller and Tyler Johnson as your fourth and fifth receivers, Tyler Johnson looked solid last week. Like he actually looked pretty good. So, fantastic for the Bucks. I don't think they're interested in bringing in OBJ. OBJ might be interested in coming to Tampa, but if he were willing to sign a lesser deal for Tampa, sure, I'm sure they'd rather have him, especially if. And the other element about that is if Tampa signs him, it means that the Saints aren't. So I know you were, but it brings up a good point, right? Like if Atlanta signs OBJ, then that means that the Saints, or if Tampa Bay signs OBJ, that means the Saints can't. So there is value to that as well. Darden Nice also, he absolutely is. Nice little speed guy. Darden is. All right, let's keep it moving. Scotty Miller better than OBJ. They're two different receivers, that's for sure. I like Scotty Miller's deep threat ability, and he and Brady seem to have a nice little connection whenever he's healthy and running down the field. So yeah, a healthy Scotty Miller. Yeah, exactly. All right, Denver Dallas. Denver couldn't get a consistent pass rush, so naturally they traded away their best pass rusher. It felt like a move for a team who, it's weird because typically when you trade away your best pieces, it usually means that you think that your team's out of it and you're not going to be able to make the playoffs. The Denver's not quite out of it. Like it feels like Denver's out of it, but they're not totally out of it yet. They're probably out of it, but not totally out of it. So it felt like a little bit of a premature move. I totally understand why they did it. Getting a second and a third is nice. A couple of day 2 picks is nice. Grizz, welcome in. I think they did it out of respect for Vaughn. Yeah, I don't know the story behind it. But a 2 and a 3 is nice for them, and they sent him to a good place, and then they paid $9 million to get away from him. Like they basically paid $9 million for 2 picks. Like let's look at it that way. Because the thing is they're losing Vaughn at the end of this year anyways. And if they end up losing Vaughn, then I mean he's going somewhere else for sure. They might as well just go ahead and get something for him now. They're going to miss 8 games at this point of him. Then a 2023 fifth. Yeah, for his comp pick. So yeah, I mean I think it's smart on them, but it also felt like a little bit of a give up to me. And I just can't help feeling that way. I will say with Jerry Jeudy back, I feel like Denver has a shot to move the ball in this game. Dallas's defense is solid, don't get me wrong, but it's a little bit overhyped right now. I feel like everybody's jumping on and saying, "Hey, this is a fantastic." It's not a fantastic event. Like I know they're 6th in DVOA, but they're probably closer to 10 or 12 in my opinion. They're good, but you can definitely move the ball on them. And if Denver can block Dallas up front, they have a shot to keep this close because they'll be able to move the ball, get some field goals, maybe a touchdown here or there, big play somewhere involved in there because Trayvon Diggs likes to try to bait some throws. So I'm not totally counting Denver out of this game. The problem for Denver is that their defense just can't stop Dallas. They play a ton of 2 high shell, mix it up between zone and man, and the Cowboys are one of the few teams that can effectively run against that 2 high look. So even if Dak isn't back, which he likely is, then I still like Dallas, but maybe not to cover the full 9. If Dak's back, I'll consider Dallas -9. But I without Dak, I don't think that there's a shot that they cover -9. If Dak doesn't play, Denver covers. Yeah, I mean I think so. I look, Denver's a bad team, but I don't think they're that bad. I don't think they're 2 scores bad. Although I do believe Dallas certainly could still put it on them. To me it depends on whether Denver can actually move the ball or not, because Dallas is definitely going to be able to move the ball Can Denver actually match them? I doubt it. With Dak, I would take Dallas -9 all day long. All right, let's keep it moving. I told you guys we're gonna blow through these tonight. We're gonna get this done. My goal is to be done by 9:30 Eastern time. So we'll see how that goes. We got an hour and 15 minutes, but we're already through what, 3 games? So yeah, doing all right. What's next? Pats Panthers. Panthers +3. So in Carolina, New England. I'll start with this game by stating that everyone else seems much higher on the Patriots than I am. For whatever reason, everybody seems to be like, "Oh, Patriots are back in it. They're a playoff team." I'm not quite there yet on the Patriots. People seem really enamored with Mac Jones. The offensive line is playing a little bit better, and the defense seems to be covering better. They've gotten a consistent and decent amount of pass rush throughout pretty much the entire season, and I'm acknowledging all of those facts. I just don't think they're a good team yet. I'm not a big fan of the roster still. The roster hasn't changed. So I haven't come around on it yet. I still think it's fairly bare. But what I do think is they're figuring out how to use it a little bit better. And I think it takes kind of a below average team to an average team, maybe just a little bit over average. And then the New England offense is still 20th in EPA per play. Though I will admit that over the last 3 weeks, they're 6th in EPA per play over the last 3 weeks. But here's the thing. In week 6, they were 19th. In week 8, they were 22nd. So their ranking jumps by 15 simply because of a good game against the Jets in week 7. That one game, they were number 1 overall in EPA per play, and that greatly influences how they look the last 3 weeks. So that Jets game is really like lifting them up. I don't deny that they're getting better, but I still feel like it's just not a great roster, a terrific coaching and scheming. And that makes them a middle of the pack team, maybe a little bit better. Now, admittedly, with 7 teams in each league, if you're counting 14 teams, if you're part of the top 14, then you're considered a wild card team, right? If you're one of the top 14 teams. So you really only have to be in the NFL anymore. You really only have to be top half of the NFL to potentially have a shot at the playoffs. So one of the little changes that I'm not particularly a fan of. Call me the old guy yelling at the cloud, like, how dare you change the playoffs? And now there's too many teams in, but it just feels like you just have to be 500 or a little bit better, and you're going to be able to make the playoffs. So, I mean, if they're an average team or slightly above average, it makes them potentially skirting into a wild card spot. So, acknowledging all of that, I'm just not there yet on New England. I still think that offensive line can be attacked for New England, and I think Carolina has the defensive line to do so. And I think Phil Snow is going to scheme up some fun stuff versus Mac Jones this weekend. I think he's looking forward to this matchup. This is another game where I think New England wants to bring the thunder in the run game, but this time it's a little bit different. We've talked about it before. They want to control the clock and manage the game and all of that stuff. I think for this particular game, I think they want to run it more to own the line of scrimmage, impose some physicality into the game, and move the ball more than just to protect their defense. I think on defense, they'll scheme up some pressure on either Darnold or PJ Walker, whoever ends up playing. Darnold's still in concussion protocol. It sounds like PJ Walker has taken all the first team snaps, so whoever plays there. Carolina is going to have to come in with a creative offensive game plan. I saw that they designated CMC for return, which means that they will need to put him back on the roster within the next 3 weeks. Doesn't mean he's going to be put on tomorrow, but means that they're almost ready to put him on the roster. Usually means that he is activated within a week, if not a few days. So we'll monitor that situation, see if CMC comes back. I know my personal fantasy team would love for CMC to come back. I think Carolina is going to have some success versus New England in the passing game. But they're going to need to put up some points to pull the game in their favor. I don't know how much success the New England passing game has against this Panthers defense. And I think they know that it's going to be a struggle to do it. This is one of those games where the Patriots are going to run, and then they're going to throw an end around, flea flicker, or Hail Mary or something like that down the field to try to get those big chunk plays. Like you'll probably see one or two of those. You'll see a halfback pass or a flea flicker or whatever it is that they draw up. Like it's going to come in this game, I feel like, especially if it's a close game and they're having problems moving the ball. Right now, I like the Panthers to cover 3.5 feels like a lot. I just don't think the Panthers are there yet. Um, I don't think the Panthers are bad enough that they can't keep this within a field goal. And I don't think everybody else is going to hammer the New England line on this. I feel like, but for me, I don't think New England's that much better than Carolina right now. I'm just concerned about the huge advantage to one seed and impact on number two seed. I mean, I don't mind giving teams. I think the one seed should have a huge advantage. I mean, if they play a full 17 game slate and they end up as the number one overall seed, they deserve a massive advantage in the playoffs. If they end up figuring out how to get how to get the two seed an advantage that's not as good as the ones, then that's deserved too. Like I like that the regular season means something. There are so many sports nowadays. Like there are NBA teams that make it in with severe losing records that make it into the playoffs, and I'm like, why not just start with the playoffs then? I mean, I get it, you play it because they need to make their money, but at the same time, like just I don't like the idea of having a team under 500 playing in the playoffs. Just doesn't feel like a great thing. So right now I'm leaning on taking the Panthers to cover that 3.5. Curious if that line moves towards New England or if people are because the thing is there are some teams that I realize that there are some teams that I realize that like I'm on and it feels like the general public aren't, and then come game day, all the sharps get on and the line moves towards the direction of my team, of the team that I've picked, and I'm like, oh, everybody was there. It's just they're not the ones talking about it. So crossover, PJ Walker starts. I think I'd easily take the Pats to cover. PJ looked awful. He's looked terrible in his snaps so far. Remember, there was a big push for PJ to be the starter at the beginning of the season because people are like, oh, Sam Darnold can't get it done. PJ Walker is much more dynamic. He can use his legs, all that stuff. Turns out Darnold can use his legs, and the actual passing game is not what's as good. So we'll see. I agree on the number one seed mattering, Gabe. Just wonder if Super Bowl becomes really 1v1 more than 2v2 or 1v2. No, it's a game of matchups, man. It's so hard to win a single football game in the NFL right now. And when you get to the playoffs, all of those teams have to be semi good at that point. Because if you end up with a winning record in the NFL, it means you're probably pretty good. It means you can definitely beat any of those teams. That's why I talked the other night last night about it being a little bit of luck needed to be able to win a Super Bowl, because everything just kind of has to work out your way to get it there, which is why it's so amazing that the Patriots have won as many as they have over the last 20 years. Um, so yeah, we'll see. The PJ Walker thing kind of throws this for a loop crossover. That's what's going to be weird. Part of me says that it's good because it adds a different dynamic to the game and forces the Pats to be able to cover PJ Walker's ability to run, and that's going to create some open windows for him to throw. I do think that PJ Walker needs a week of preparation to be able to play and to play well, because they need to install that game plan specifically for him. So I think that's an advantage versus him just coming in to finish out games like he's had to do over the last couple. So I'm still leaning Panthers, but I'll have to take a look at that one a little bit more before Sunday. All right, Minnesota, Baltimore. This one is this is an interesting line. Baltimore -6. Now I get it. It's in Baltimore. Ravens coming off of a bye week probably factors into it a little bit as well. I will say Minnie's offensive game plan last week was not good. They need to start pushing the ball down the field, and I think that's going to be a big part of the gameplay. It's going to have to be a big part of the game plan this week. Part of that is scheme. but a ton of it is Cousins too. Cousins just hasn't been as willing to throw the ball down the field as he has in the past. The Cowboys last week or this weekend, they keyed on the screens and swings, and Minnesota never threw deep to take them out of those reads. Micah Parsons was like, "Hey, I don't need to run at the quarterback. I just need to run at the guy in the backfield. Just I can go tackle him because I know he's getting the ball. So why am I going to run to the quarterback and then turn and go to that guy whenever I know that guy's getting the ball anyways?" Micah Parsons identified. He didn't even have to identify. He just ran to the running back. So the Vikings are going to have to throw the ball down the field. Baltimore is going to load the box. They're going to try to stop the run game, and they're going to corral those short passes, and they're going to press, and they're going to say, "Hey, like, you're not going to get the easy gains on us. If you're going to beat us, you're going to have to throw it deep." They may not blitz as much this game for that reason specifically. Minnesota's going to get, and I don't think the Ravens need to. I think that they're going to be able to get a good amount of the Minnesota offensive line is not good at pass blocking. Minnesota's going to get a lot of one-on-one on the perimeter, which is good for them. There's going to be lots of Baltimore defenders filling in those short zones, playing the run, probably middle of the field as well. So there's going to be opportunities for Minnesota. They're just going to have to take advantage and be successful, not create turnovers. With Humphrey out there, Humphrey probably guards Jefferson, which means Thielen could potentially have a big game if he's one-on-one on the perimeter. KJ Osborne potentially could have a big game in this one as well if they just decide. And the thing is they keep trying to cover Jefferson with their best player, whoever the Vikings are playing, and Jefferson still continues to put up decent games. So I'm interested to see how that goes. I feel like Baltimore should have recognized that they couldn't cover Jamar Chase with Marlon Humphrey. I think that they've got a better shot at covering Jefferson with Marlon Humphrey, but I still don't think that that's a lockdown situation. I would still expect Jefferson to have a solid game out of it if Minnesota isn't able to run the ball. But Baltimore is definitely going to try to take that away. Baltimore on offense, they'll need to use the width of the field in the screen in the short passing game, and then they'll want to do that short. Throw it sideline to sideline whenever they're trying to throw short. And then whenever they try to go with the deep passing game, they'll want to start using the middle of the field when they're throwing basically past the line of scrimmage. And again, Breeland can be targeted. He can be deep, cornerback for the Vikings. He's aggressive. He's played really well the last few weeks, but he's an aggressive cornerback. And so a well-timed double move can lead to a quick TD and a quick 6 points on him. So interesting if Baltimore does. It feels like that's on Marquise Bray. If he ends up on Hollywood Brown, I feel like that's something that the Ravens are going to try to test. Here's the thing. I don't like any team covering 6 points against the Vikings because the Vikings tend to play everybody very, very close. Doesn't matter if it's a bad team, good team, they play everybody close. So I'm leaning Baltimore to cover the 6 in this game. So we'll see. Minnesota doesn't match wide receivers. Right. So that's the thing, right? Is that's where they're going to be able to get Hollywood Brown out there on Breeland and be able to take advantage because Breeland just doesn't have the speed to keep up with Hollywood Brown. And if Brown hits him with the double move, Breeland's going to bite on it, and if they don't have safety coverage over top, then it could be a problem. So I'm curious, but Minnesota does like to play a good amount of too high. So they're going to force Lamar to take those underneath throws. They're going to copy that Cincinnati game plan. Like I would say that Minnesota can run that Cincinnati game plan to perfection in the exact same way that Cincinnati did. So if Baltimore didn't immediately put in beaters for that type of coverage and that type of rush and retrace, I don't know what's going on with the Baltimore. They need it. They need to do it because that is immediately going to become the blueprint. So yeah, so that one's an interesting game, interesting matchup. All right, Cleveland, Cincinnati, AFC North matchup, always fun. Let's see. Cincinnati -2.5 at home. So this line basically says that Cleveland is just tiny bit better. But in but in Cincinnati, Cincinnati's favored to win. I think for me, it's all about the run for Cleveland. Cincy is strong up the middle. So we talked about DJ Reader, linebacker, safety up the middle. They're pretty good up the middle, right? Um, geez, 6, 7 Vikings games have been within 7. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Crossover. They play everybody close. Anytime there's a big line on the Vikings, I'm more than willing to take whoever is the dog on that one. Because it's probably going to be close. Um, Cincinnati strong up the middle. So as long as the Browns can figure out how to run around that, I think they're going to be fine. Baker will need to get some help from his wide receivers. Last week they had 6 drop passes, a fumble by Landry. Who knows if they're going to have OBJ this week? Um, since he got beat by letting Mike White play efficiently, they didn't really. There wasn't a ton of pressure on Mike White last week. And when Mike White threw it up to his wide receivers, they came down with it. The cornerbacks just got beat. So they could have a problem with that again this week. With Cleveland, I don't think Cleveland wants to run all or wants to throw all over the field, but Landry's going to win against some of these cornerbacks. I think Donovan Peoples-Jones, if he's healthy, is going to have a shot. Njoku could have a shot. Hooper could be kind of a little sleeper in this game. It'll be interesting. White also checked it down a ton. He did. He was super efficient is what I'll call it, right? Is he looked up top. He basically had the Tom Brady thing. Look at your deep receivers first and then read back towards the line of scrimmage. And he had enough time to throw and get back to his check down. So I would expect that Cincinnati tries to figure something else out because they can't continue to play that. We talked about Cincinnati's offensive line. They got beat up a little bit by that Jets defensive line. We know about the explosive plays of Burrow and Chase and company. Uzoma deserves to be mentioned in there, and that plays into the Browns' preferred type of too high zone coverage. They'll attempt to limit big plays. They'll keep everything kind of in front of them, but they're gonna have to tackle well. They're gonna have to tackle Jamar Chase when he does catch those underneath routes, those slants and crosses and things like that. They're gonna have to be worried about the deep over route because that can sometimes get safeties pushed out of the way, get him running across their face, and then all of a sudden he's up the sideline before they know it. Those type of things they'll have to be careful about. This to me feels like, I don't know. Um, by the way, Cleveland is top 5 in pressure percentage, and that should play well against a bad Bengals offensive line, which I think is a big piece. It's a big key to this game. This to me just feels like a bad matchup for the Bengals. I think Cleveland can run the ball versus Cincy, and I think that's going to force them to load the box. And then Baker's going to be able to make a few throws here and there, and they're going to be able to beat those corners. Because the Cincy corners are beatable. They showed that last week. I think this game lines up well for a Cleveland cover, and even potentially a Cleveland win. Like I would probably go money line on Cleveland. If I'm betting Cleveland to cover in this game, I'm betting Cleveland to win this game. You saw CJ Uzoma doing a video on how to pronounce his name? No. Am I pronouncing it right? I don't. Here's the thing. I don't watch enough like ESPN, and I'm gonna get players pronunciations wrong because I don't watch enough TV to be able to hear how other people are saying some of these names. I'll have heard them in the draft maybe before, but yeah, it was on Twitter. I'll have to look it up. Gabe. Let's see. Yeah, so I'm leaning Cleveland in that game. I think it lines up well for Cleveland. All right, next couple of games we're probably going to go through pretty quick. Bills, Jags. Buffalo is number 1 in DVOA. Jacksonville's 30th. Jacksonville has one of the worst coaching staffs in the league. Buffalo has one of the best. Jacksonville's best chance in this game is to be able to run the ball, but their star running back, I say star lightly. Their star running back is banged up. To me, this feels like a 30-0 route to me. It just feels like Buffalo is going to own this game from start to finish. They have such an easy schedule. I mean, the Rams do too. The Rams got the Texans and Lions back to back. So it happens. Yeah, I'm taking Buffalo minus 14. There's not much to break down in that particular game. It's just one of those things where it is what it is. All right. Texans fence. We probably won't spend a ton here. Um this is battle of the beatens, man. Houston and Miami, both of these teams sit. Remember our tiers that we did last night? Both of these teams sit in the bottom of our tier rankings. Neither are going to make it out no matter what happens in this game because they're both really bad. But hey, somebody's got to win, right? Somebody has to win. And honestly, the loser of this game is probably actually the winner because it'll serve as the tiebreaker for whoever gets the earlier pick. This game could end up deciding who gets the number one overall pick if the Lions do happen to win a game before the end of the year. So, I think your goal is to lose this game, not to win it. In terms of the actual game, Miami has more to their defense than Houston does. Mills could have problems finding some receivers because we talked about it. Byron Jones and Xavier Howard are actually pretty good. Tua isn't the guy for Miami, but he's good enough to look efficient versus bad teams. He's going to have to be smart with the football, though, or Lovey's defense might come up with a pick or two in this game. As long as Tua protects the ball, I think he's going to look okay. I think they can run the ball. I like Miami to win, Houston to cover for now because I don't think they're a full touchdown. It's 6.5, right? So I don't think they're a full touchdown in terms of separation at this point. Yeah, it's still 6.5. I want to make sure. I feel like that line's going to move. I just don't know what direction it's going to move. I feel like there's going to be a bunch of people landing on one side or the other of that particular line. All right, that's Texans Fins. Let's see. Rams are reeling after the release of Deshaun Jackson. Reeling. Like so reeling. Can someone tell me where in the world Will Fuller is on IR? Can someone also tell me why Miami thought it would be good to have a good idea to have two OCs? That one's one I'm still scratching my head. To a degree, I understand the whole run game coordinator, passing game coordinator. It allows them to focus on specific things, but you take out that cohesiveness in terms of understanding how those things play together. And being able to scheme them together. And we talk about it every single week. You have to play complementary football. The offense has to complement the defense and vice versa, and then special teams has to complement both of those. So you can't put either one in bad positions. And if you can use one to put the other in good positions, then obviously that helps the entire team. So the whole two offensive coordinator thing is probably going to be the undoing of Brian Flores in Miami. I think for me, I think Brian Flores has done an okay job there. But that's also on him. As far as I know, that's on him. I don't think that was like a Stephen Ross or a Will Greer move where Chris Greer, not Will Greer, Chris Greer, the GM, not the quarterback, Chris Greer. I don't think he made that call. I think it was Brian Flores' call, and that's a terrible, terrible idea. Now, I will say that they made that call to try to keep continuity for Tua. They tried to do everything for Tua and cater to him, other than actually getting him good players, of course, because they weren't able to do that. I just don't. Sorry, I'm just not there on Tua, and I'm not going to be. He's going to have to show me a lot more. Like, he's basically going to have to be able to start throwing darts downfield without looking like he's got a crow hop to get it there. There's a baseball term for you since the World Series is over. Maybe throwing a bone for a homie's resume. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. And the thing is, it's not just two guys. So it's the running backs coach, and I think the tight ends coach are kind of co-coordinating, and then the quarterbacks coach is also helping out as well. He has input on play. Like, it's just a mess. It's just a mess on Miami's offense. Now, I did have a bunch of guys arguing whenever I put out the tiers last night. So Lions, Texans, Jags, and Dolphins fans all came into my mentions and said, we're the worst team. We deserve to have our own tier on the bottom by ourselves. And I said, sorry, you all four have said the same thing. So based on that, motion denied, because you all deserve to be in this tier together. And so we're gonna get a chance to actually see who is the worst team. Um, and I actually think it's the Texans. I do think it's the Texans. But I also think Miami's a little bit better coach. I think Flores overall is a better head coach than Culley is. I think he actually plays situational football, which might be what ends up winning that game. And I don't think Flores wants to lose right now either. All right. I have Raiders Giants on this. Yeah, Raiders Giants. Sorry, almost skipped that game. All right. Grizz Tua might have taken that from Tom Amansky baseball camp with Fred McGriff. That's the guy I was trying to think of. So it's funny. Um, I in reading It's Better to Be Feared, the story about the Patriots and Brady and Belichick, all that I talked about it on stream a few times. Hopefully you're familiar with it by now. Tom Amansky was the guy that I used to remember those commercials that he used to throw, and the kid, out in center field that just throws a laser and you watch it just go up and down, bounce twice and um into the trash can at home plate, right? Like that was always the commercial. I was trying to think of his name because in It's Better to Be Feared, they talk about Brady's throwing coach, which is now Tom House. I think it's Tom House. And I was like, is that the guy that that threw? I was like, man, is that the guy that threw with that had the commercials of the like how to throw and mechanics and all of that stuff? And I was like, that doesn't seem right. And I was trying to remember Tom Amansky. Grizz, you just saved me. Like, I'm gonna sleep better tonight because of that. So thank you. I appreciate that. I could not remember if Tom House. I was like, that's not the guy. And it turns out it's not. It's Tom Amansky. But yeah, Tom House is Brady's throwing guy, who supposedly has done a lot for him. It's kind of cool to listen to, and listen to what he's done for him. Brady attributes a lot to him. So, all right, Raiders and Giants in New York. So Vegas is 5-2. Those two losses came when they played a Chargers team that was at the top of their game at the time, and then in the following week they lost. Um, they lost because they looked like they were highly unprepared. That was the week that the Gruden news broke, and they looked very distracted. They looked very distracted coming in that game. And I bring that up because I think the Raiders are good enough to cover this game, even without the receiver that they recently released, who we all know made some very poor choices that cost somebody their life. And I think that the Raiders, even without him, are still good enough to put a wallop on the Giants. The problem is that they could be understandably distracted this week. Now, I think Rich Bisaccia is the perfect type of coach that can rally the troops, and can get them focused, but it's going to be hard. And that's the only concern I have about this particular game. Look, the Giants are the type of team that if it's a bad team that they're playing, they can play them close, but they're getting hammered by good teams. Like the Giants are bad, not horrible. And I feel like this is a game where Vegas should easily cover the 3. The Giants aren't bad against the pass. They can cover a little bit. They're 11th in pass DVOA, 21st against the run on defense, though. So it's really kind of a strength on strength, if you can call it that. The Raiders are 11th in offensive pass DVOA. They pass block okay, but they can't run block. The Giants can kind of sort of cover, but they can't get a pass rush. They get pressure on only 19.8% of their plays, which is fifth worst in the league. I feel like this is a Raiders game to me. And again, I'm higher on the Raiders than a lot of people, and I understand why people aren't quite there yet on them. But I feel like I've seen enough and know this scheme well enough that they're doing it the way that it needs to be done. And I think that the defense is good enough, especially against this Giants team. So I'm definitely leaning Raiders to cover the 3. Though again, distractions could play a little bit into this game. All right, Chargers Eagles. Chargers coming into Philly as only a 2-point favorite feels like a gift to me. I feel like there's something I'm missing, right? Like I need to go look and make sure that there's no particular like injuries for the Chargers that I'm like, oh my god, what did I miss? So it's Justin Jackson, Asante Samuel Jr. Asante Samuel Jr. It says he's been ruled out with a concussion. I don't know if that's actually up to date or not, though. Those are the two guys that are basically potentially out. Chargers +2 is bait. It's Chargers -2. Right. Chargers are favored by 2. Um it's there's something weird about this line. And there's always it feels like there's at least one or something like that. Herbert is hurt. Yeah, exactly. That's what it feels like crossover. It feels like there's something weird like, "Oh, Herbert's hurt and we just don't know," but Vegas does, and they've already got the line there. So, um for me, I it just feels like a Chargers cover pretty easily. The only reason that I feel like it might be +2 right now is because people are like, "Holy cow, look how good the Eagles looked last week." And people still don't realize how bad that Lions defense is. And we came in and said last week, "Hey, I get it. Understand why people think that the Lions are scrappy, but they're not a good matchup for the Eagles." Like, uh, I think the Eagles are probably easily winning this game, and -3 for the Eagles felt like bait. That one felt like bait last week, and I feel like this one's bait this week. To me, the Chargers are a good football team that ran into a Bill Belichick game plan last week. I was concerned about some of the comments that Herbert made about the Pats played too high, which they weren't expecting, nor had they seen it on film from them. I said, go back to the Bucks game and the Cowboys game, and it's pretty obvious. You can see it. It's there. Look, the Pats don't generally play too deep, but they certainly open up the middle of the field and play that against teams that stretch the field against them, a la the Cowboys and the Bucks. We called it on here that the Pats would do exactly that. And the Chargers seem surprised by it. So that scares me a little bit, but I have faith that maybe that was taken out of context, or Herbert didn't really mean what he's like there he just didn't really mean what he said, or maybe he just missed it. Maybe the coaches knew it, but Herbert wasn't prepared for it, which is still kind of the same thing. Because if the coaches didn't prepare him for it, then that's still on them. So, I think this is just a weird circumstance, but it's something I'm keeping my eye on. I think the Chargers come in well prepared, especially against a very vanilla Eagles defense. We've talked about that. There's not a lot of post snap rotation or things that they do that could confuse an offense. Herbert should be fine. The defense would have a strong game versus should have a strong game versus the Eagles pass game as well. Um, I feel like they can cover the Eagles based on the way that they play defense. I feel like they should be able to get a decent amount of pass. The one good thing about Philly is they have a strong offensive line. The problem is Jalen Hurts doesn't actually use a pocket. He prefers to run outside of the pocket, even though it's clean way too much. And I just there's something about this. Philly won't run on LAC. So that's the other point. That's the other. It's literally the next note that I've got, Gabe. So this feels like a game where how close the final score is determined by the Eagles' willingness and effectiveness to run the ball. They've had two solid games rushing the football. So last week, dropped 236 yards rushing against the Lions. The previous week, 135. They averaged 4 to a carry 2 weeks ago. They averaged over 5 last week. If they continue that, I think it evens out their offense and it doesn't put as much pressure on Hurts to just kind of do it all by himself. And I think that's big for them. And I think the running game, the biggest part of that running game is to protect a not very good defense. So I think the Chargers cover the 2 points easy, but um, Philly could potentially keep this close with the run game if they decide to do so. I just don't. They haven't shown a desire to do so, except for the last two games. And last game, I would say the script basically. I think Hertz only had 14 dropbacks. Was he the guy that only had 14 dropbacks? He didn't have a ton of throws last week. So, you know, something is weird about this game, and I feel like this is a gift, but I also feel like there's something that I don't know. So I don't know. I might reach out to like some of my beat writer friends and that cover the Chargers and be like, "Yo, what am I missing here?" no shot they run well on the Chargers and not with Boston Scott. The Chargers have one of the worst run defenses in the NFL. That's the problem. That's why I feel like there's a potential for the Eagles to really pop off, because they're not afraid to give it to Boston Scott or Gainwell or shit. Who's the other guy that had a big game? O-line greater than running back except Henry. Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that's the thing is I think the Eagles have a really good run blocking offensive line, and they needed to get Miles Sanders in some space behind it, and they just never, and now they're kind of coming around to it. And it's like, wow, like they can actually score some points, move the football whenever they do that. Generally in the NFL, it's pass to get points and then run to protect a lead. And the Eagles are in a spot where they're basically able to run the ball and score at the same time, which is a really good position because it means you're putting the ball at less risk when you do that. You're less likely to fumble than you are to throw an interception at any given time. So we'll see. But to me, that just feels, and I think that's probably why the Philly game is +2, is because Philly has run the ball really well the last 2 weeks. The Chargers are not good against the run. That's the only way for them to keep it close. The problem is Philly wants to throw the ball so much that it makes no sense to bet on them to actually try to run the ball. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. Again, just doesn't feel right. All right. Let's see. Green Bay and Chiefs. What should we talk about here? Um, any news? Any news to talk about here? I think it's funny. So the line went from 2.5 points in favor of the Packers. So Packers -2.5 to -7.5 in favor of the Chiefs today. And it feels like it's settled there. I'm curious if it's moved anymore. No, it's pretty much settled at -7.5 in favor of the Chiefs. So that feels like a lot for a not very good Chiefs team to cover. They can't really score with ease right now. Packers are going to play the too high defense. They're going to do the same thing. ESPN Pick'em sets Tuesday lines, then never moves them. So -2.5 is nice. That's super nice. That's super nice. But it still may not. It's funny just because it still may not cover. So if you've been listening to the show at all, and most of you guys have, we have Green Bay pegged. They use the run game and screens to control the pace of the game. They're going to manage how long their defense is out on the field, and then they're going to take calculated shots around that. The problem is that the calculus changes with Jordan Love in the game versus Aaron Rodgers. Are they still able to take those calculated shots, and are they as successful when doing so? The defense isn't great, but they're going to play the same defense that everybody else is playing against KC. That 2 high safeties, keep the ball in front, don't blitz very much, don't let them have the big play, run to them and tackle. Hopefully you get a bad pass. And that's something we probably haven't talked about as much is Mahomes' ball placement is part of the reason that balls are going off of the hands of receivers. It's not as much that he's forcing it. It's just the throw to the tight end, not Kelsey, that went off his hands and ended up in Asante Samuel Jr.'s hands. Like that was a little bit off, and receiver still needs to catch it. But if it's a good throw, it probably doesn't bounce off his hands that way. Like there's a couple of those like that. Same thing for the interception last week against this week against the Giants. Like if he makes a better throw, it's probably there. He doesn't need to fire it as hard as he did in that short of space. So I think Green Bay is actually, their defense is built to play the way that it needs to play. I just don't think they have enough talent to play how they need to play to be able to keep the Chiefs at bay all day. Green Bay should be able to run well also. So that's something else we got to talk about, right? So the question becomes, can KC either beat the 2 high safeties or stay patient on offense? And then on defense, are they able to keep Green Bay at bay enough for the offense to do what it needs to do? I like the addition of Ingram. Ingram probably plays this week. That particular position, they can just put him on the edge and let him rush the quarterback. And the other thing is, and we talked about it a little bit, it's going to force Chris Jones back inside, and that's going to make that front much, much stronger. And that front being stronger, Ingram being able to rush the passer should be able to help the secondary because it's going to be shorter time to throw. Devontae Adams would likely be the big play threat in this game. I think Cobb is kind of a sneaky play because I think he's going to be the security blanket for Jordan Love in this game. It's a fun matchup due to all the moving parts, even without Rodgers. I think it makes it I mean, I think it takes a big element of the game out, but I don't think it makes this a blowout game just because of the way Green Bay plays. They rely on Rodgers to make some plays in key moments, and they're going to lose that, or it's going to be dropped a little bit with Love. So I'm curious to how they manage it, but the scheme on offense and the idea on offense of how they run their offense isn't going to change with Jordan Love in the game. It's going to be basically the same. KC defense should make Love beat them. I mean, that's basically how they play, right? They play a lot of man defense. They blitz a good amount. They play single high safety. They basically want you to test against their corners, and they've been getting beaten because Daniel Sorensen is a terrible corner. So that feels like they're going to do. Both of these teams are just going to play the way that they normally play, and it's going to come down to execution and who can execute better. I think the Chiefs offense probably has the edge in terms of execution. It's just, are they able to stay away from the turnovers that have plagued them recently? Sorensen, not even a corner, he's a safety. Right, but they're playing him as they're like he's a safety, but that dude is in coverage way too much. Like, he's basically a cornerback because of how much he plays corner. He's probably better when he plays linebacker. Yeah, he's much better as a linebacker. He's still not very good as a linebacker, but he's much better than playing safety. A dude does not need to be in a whole lot of pass coverage, especially against quick players or fast players for that matter. Quick and fast aren't the same thing, by the way. I don't know if I've ever said that. Quick and fast, two totally different things. Fast is straight line speed. Quick is acceleration, basically. He plays slot. Right, exactly. Like, he doesn't need to be playing down in the slot. When they go 4 wide and he drops down in the slot, whoever is on him is that's who's getting targeted by the quarterback. And to me, it's insane for them to even allow that to happen. But they feel like Sorensen's better than whatever they have left, which scares me about whatever they have left. The thing is I don't think I think whatever they have left has to be better than Sorensen. So, fun game, really interesting matchup. Just because Rodgers isn't in there doesn't mean I'm not watching. I think that's going to be a really fun game to watch. Cards 49ers. All right, how we doing? 9:00 and we got 3 games left. Damn, we're scooting tonight, guys. But I like this. This is good. I think we're hitting the highlights, but keeping it moving. And the conversation's good. You guys are calling out the stuff that I'm missing, or calling out the stuff that I'm eventually going to hit on. So we're on the same page. I love it. Love it, love it, love it. So thank you guys for hanging out. Really, really appreciate it. It's been a good night so far. All right, so far we've got Cards, Niners, Titans, Rams, and Bears, Steelers left. Really, I just looked at that Titans Rams game, and every time I look at it, I get so disappointed that Derrick Henry's not in that game. That could have been such a fun matchup if Henry's in that game. We'll get to that one in a second. All right, so Arizona, San Francisco. This is another game that feels like the line is kind of weird. Arizona is only a 1.5 point favorite against the Niners. Now, it's in San Francisco. Put it at a neutral field. That means that they're saying Arizona's 4.5 point favorite. 4.5 points probably feels the same. Feels about right. I just don't know. It's a huge NFC West matchup. Curious to see if that it is only plus 1.5 for the Niners. I think that with that line, you've got to be leaning Arizona. They've shown consistency in being good, and San Francisco has had maybe 2 good games all season. One of those being last week's game. Arizona's good at nearly everything. San Francisco has no identity on offense because they can't find consistent success with the running game or the passing game. Now, I will say they found it last week against the Bears, but can they do it again this week? And it took him a little bit to get going last week against a Khalil Mack-less Bears, right? He was not in the game. So I feel like that's an important thing to call out. The problem for the 49ers is that they can't seem to stop anybody in the pass game. They did add Omeniu to help with that, the D line and the pass rush. Like I expect to see, so Omeniu would play on the edge for Houston, but I think he's going to play like a 3-4 defensive end type of role. Like he's going to be kind of inside and kind of on the edge with his hand in the dirt. He's not going to be like a stand up edge type of rusher. So I do think that he's going to help. Going to be really interesting to see how they get him into the game. Is he just a rotational player, or is he going to start playing a whole lot more? I do think that a rotational player for good teams is very, very important. So if you are the 49ers and you plan on being in the playoffs, having that extra pass rusher at the end of the game in the fourth quarter when everybody's gassed is a major advantage and plays a big part in how games unfold and close out. So kind of a quiet move by them, but could end up paying off if they can kind of crowbar themselves back into the conversation of the wild card. Problem is they play in the NFC West, and that's going to be very, very hard for them to do. If Lance is healthy, I would expect JG to start and play mostly for the Niners, but I would expect some Lance packages sprinkled in there just to keep Arizona guessing. I'll definitely want to go back and watch the previous game. The problem with trying to watch the previous game is Lance started that game, and that changes everything about how the 49ers offense would try to attack, how the Arizona defense is going to try to play defense against that. It's hard to be able to look at that game and take some important stuff out of it because it just changes the matchup so much. For Arizona, they'll figure out ways to attack the cornerbacks of San Francisco, and should be able to do so as long as they can block up front. The wild card is Kyler, right? So is Kyler able to play? How effective is he? Can Kyler move around like Kyler moves around? And without knowing that, it's a hard game to predict. But for now, I still have to lean Arizona with such a tight line. Crossover pitches with Mitchell and his speed versus the speed of Buda Baker, Simmons, Collins is going to be interesting. Yeah, I think they're going to have to go with some more like inside zone type of stuff this week. And let those receiver or those linebackers and safeties kind of move themselves out of the way while creating those cutback lanes to go back against the grain and get Mitchell through them. I think that's the way they've got to play it. Very much like a misdirection type of game. So think about it like when they played the Colts in the rain, right? A couple of weeks ago, and we talked about how the misdirection was going to be huge. When you have a fast defense like the Colts, they're going to move themselves into position a lot faster to be able to try to stop it. And so when you give that misdirection, you're going to have a lot bigger holes. And those are the two drives. They did that on two drives, and both of those drives they scored touchdowns on. The only drives that they scored touchdowns on. Why they didn't continue to do that, I have no idea. It just seems like they decided to walk away from it. When does Hudson come back, Gabe? So he was designated to return from injury reserve on Tuesday, actually. When he actually reports back to the team and is ready to go, not sure yet. I haven't read if they're indicating that he's coming back or if he's going to be out for another week. I would expect him to be back at least for next week, if not this week. It depends on how healthy they are as to whether they think Rodney Hudson gets in. So we'll see. This is a fun. I love these NFC West matchups, man. They're just so fun. But yeah, think of it like the Colts game. Like those are two. So Arizona, it's funny actually. Like the Colts and the Cardinals defenses are very similar. Built on speed. They'll mix it up in terms of two high and single high. Play mostly zone. Or maybe I'm getting that backwards. But with their speed and the way that they're doing, they like to blitz a good amount, blitz at a higher clip in the NFL more than most teams. Like they're going to be very similar defenses. And I think that the 49ers can take key pieces of their offense from that Colts game, extract that out and repurpose it for this game. And I think they can hit the ground running. like right off the bat. Get those scripted plays in there, run basically that same first drive that they ran against the Colts, go down, score, put yourself ahead. That's what they're going to need to do against, because Arizona playing from behind, they seem to push the gas a little bit too hard, get a little bit too anxious, and they don't play as well from behind. So it's definitely a game that San Francisco can win. As long as Kyler plays, I still have to lean Arizona because San Francisco just hasn't shown enough yet. And maybe last week was the game where they're like, oh, we figured it out. We got this now. Maybe Jimmy G had 2 or 3 throws last week that were probably the best throws that he's made all season. So if when he's in sync and his mechanics are on, he's a solid quarterback, but it hasn't been the case so far this season until last week. So we'll see. Very, very interesting game though. All right, Titans, Rams. Rams -7.5 at home in LA. Tennessee traveling out to the West Coast. It's sad to see this at 7.5. I'm so disappointed Derrick Henry's not in this game. I would have loved to seen how the Rams defense matched up against Derrick Henry. How much do they load the box? Who do they put? How do they deploy? Sorry, how do they deploy Jalen Ramsey? Who does he cover? Probably AJ Brown. Do they go 2 high safeties and protect against Julio going deep too? Do they rotate to Julio and expect Ramsey to manage AJ all by himself? How do they actually manage the run game for Tennessee? They would have the horses up front in the front 7 to be able to do so. It's just if the Titans had Henry in this game, this would definitely be one of the more interesting ones. Now it's on Tannehill to be able to maintain with Stafford throughout this game. And I think the biggest issue is that the Titans needing to pass more is going to expose an offensive line that can't pass block. And it's also going to expose a defense that it really needs to be managed by the offense. And their time on the field needs to be managed by the offense. Who's running for Tennessee now? So they signed Adrian Peterson, who they signed him to their practice squad with the intent to promote him to the active game day squad on game day. Now, that's what the intent is. As of right now, Jeremy McNichols is who they have as their second running back on their roster. They also have Blossingame, but I don't expect him to be in there. Derrick Henry did finish out the game. So that's the thing, right? Is usually with an injury, we should be able to go back and look at a game and say, hey, after that injury, what happened? How did they end up deploying the backups for that particular game? The issue is that even with the Jones fracture, Derrick Henry came back into the game, so we didn't really get to see that. Let's see. So last week, Derrick Henry had 28 carries, 60 yards. Nobody else had a carry other than the quarterbacks. Derrick Henry had all the carries from the running back position. Jeremy McNichols had 3 receptions for 33 yards. He's their third down back. That's not the guy that you want running. So that's probably why they signed AP, and AP is going to be the dude. I wonder if the Titans OC goes back to his pass happy ways with the Raiders. I mean, I doubt it. I doubt it. This offense and this entire team is built around being able to run the football. And it's hard to overstate how important Derrick Henry is to a team like that. It sucks. It hurts so much for the Titans that he's gone. So can they get the same thing from AP, who, at the height of his career, AP was Derrick Henry. That was the exact type of runner that he was, right? And Henry does it as well as AP does. Henry's got a little bit better in terms of his cutback game, but AP, he can certainly do it. So does he still, it's basically the ghost of Derrick Henry at this point, who they're going to have in their running. So we'll see. I don't know. The Rams by minus 7.5 still feels like a lot if both Julio and AJ Brown go for the Titans. I interested to see how this line moves throughout the week. I feel like it could go either way. It could move down to 7 or 6.5, maybe even 6 for Tennessee if people are still feeling like they're not that bad. Or it could move up to 10. It ain't gonna move to 10, but it might move to like 8.5. By the time the game gets here. I'm leaning Rams, but I don't think that's indicative of how good the Titans are. I think the Titans are better than that. I also think this is a bad matchup for the Titans because the Rams are going to be able to throw all over them. Titans can't get a pass rush. They're not particularly great at covering, so Rams should be able to move the ball pretty easily. And then that's going to end up putting Ryan Tannehill in a position where he's got to throw the ball all over the yard and he's got to go after Jalen Ramsey. And now Von Miller and Leonard Floyd and Aaron Donald. Good luck, brother. Good luck is all I got to say. So I'm curious to see how that one actually ends up. All right, final game. Bears Steelers. We may actually get this done before 9:30. Bears Steelers. So Monday Night Football. These two teams by themselves aren't that interesting to me, but I think there are a few key matchups that are interesting. Gabe, Tennessee's defense is bad. Yes, they are. Yeah, we'll see. This game is going to be gross, and it's going to be on national TV for everybody to watch crossover. Um, the main matchup that I'm interested in watching is the defensive front of Pittsburgh. I thought they did a good job of loading up the box last week against the Browns. Played that running game. They didn't really, they contained Nick Chubb in that running game. Dearness Johnson didn't have as good of a game. I think they did a good job of containing that run game. So big credit to them. I think going up against Fields, who has struggled when receiving any pressure whatsoever, is a positive for them. There's no Manning cast on Monday. Damn it, that sucks. I'm so they got a good week off. Yeah, good for them. The problem is Peyton's still probably going to be charting the plays all by the game all by himself. Trying to figure out who's going to win. Like it's just he's a football nerd like that, and I say that as the greatest compliment. Yeah. So Fields last week had probably his best game he's had as a pro, I would say. The one thing that stood out to me is they need to incorporate more running into the game, into the game plan for Fields this week. I think they need to do it overall, but I think they definitely need to do it this week. It was really effective whenever he ran with the ball last week. I think it's going to continue to be effective. I think it also helps make the windows a little bit bigger for Fields when he does go to throw, which is going to be huge for his processing and decision making. And that has to be incorporated in for him going forward. When he runs with his legs, he looks fantastic. Whenever he's throwing with confidence, he looks amazing. He still has some issues processing what he's seeing in front of him. Still has major issues in processing where pressure is coming from, where the protections are going, and what he needs to be aware of. Still a major issue for him. And the Steelers can prey on that. So that's going to be a fun matchup. That defensive front against a bad offensive line and Justin Fields feels kind of like another like Todd Bowles type of matchup against Justin Fields a little bit. So we'll see how that goes. And then the other thing is Pitt has shown that they can find ways to move the ball. And as much as I don't really like their offense and the way that they do it, I just everything feels disjointed. They do a good job running the ball. Ben kind of gets it done, but he kind of misses a lot of stuff that he shouldn't miss, and he can't push the ball down the field. So I think I have to respect what this offense is and that they can get it done in the way that they're doing it, but it's never going to be a good offense. So again, another team that plays very well, it plays complementary offense, defense, and special teams. Although that special teams play last week was pretty atrocious because they got their kicker hit. Mike Tomlin basically said in the presser, like, that was a horrible call by us. We never should have called that. And thankfully our team was able to basically make it a side note to the game, not a key to the game. as to why the other team won. So Tomlin was handled that perfectly, I thought. And then the other thing I'd say is Boswell needs to not take a shot there. Like you got to know that you're the only kicker out there. And look, if you're on a team where the punter can also kick and you get hurt, all right, you can make do with the game. Like he can kick extra points. He can get in there and do it. The Steelers punter apparently had never kicked a field goal in his life. Never kicked a field goal. Just was not something that he did. So when that's the case, you have to be aware of what the alternative is. I mean, nobody ever thinks they're going to get hurt, right? But in that situation, Boswell has to be headier. Is Boswell back this week? Let's take a look. He was in concussion protocol, but he looked okay. I think he's okay. Diagnosed with a concussion. That was last week. There's no updates here, but it looks like he's fine. Yeah, despite the dumb play call, I don't know what Boswell was doing. He held it way too long. He's trying to make something happen. I get why he was doing it, but you can't take a hit. As a kicker, you just can't take that hit. And by the way, if you ever want to know what it would look like for you to play in a regular football game, like an NFL game, that right there, that's what would happen. You'd get concussed on your one and only play. Like that looks like us basically trying. And by the way, like the funny thing is Boswell still probably runs like a 5.6, 5.7, which is faster than probably anybody in this chat can run. I know I certainly couldn't beat it. I don't know that I could beat 6 at this point. We make fun of the Mannings and their lack of athleticism. I think they still run like a 6-second 40, which is something none of us could probably do right now. I know I certainly couldn't. Back to the game. So Pittsburgh, they can move the ball. I don't necessarily like how they do it, but they can. The Bears have looked bad, but I don't think they're worthy of being a full 6-point dog this week. I like them to cover for now, but I continue to lean a little bit more and a little bit more. Like I just kind of convinced myself that the whole front situation against Justin Fields could cause problems for him because the Steelers will mix it up against the Bears and will cause many problems for that offensive line, and that could be a major issue. Chicago being able to block a little bit up front for San Francisco for the San Francisco game, it definitely helps Fields. So, and I don't trust Matt Nagy to be able to come back in and put more running plays into the offense for Justin Fields to make him feel comfortable and to be more effective as an offense. So the more I think about it, the more I lean Pittsburgh. 6 points feels like a lot for this offense for me, but they've continued to play and beat and cover all season. Peyton was very good on the bootleg too. Yes. Peyton looked very labored. Dude, when that dude bootlegged, he ran so hard. He didn't run fast, but he ran hard. I mean, watching him, there's a YouTube clip where like him practicing, I think it was in one of the like Peyton, pieces that they've done profiling him where like he's just taking play action and he goes, he hikes it and he sprints to hand off the ball and then he turns and he sprints to the corner on the rollout. And it's just like that dude practiced at full speed. Like he did it as he was going to do it in the game. It was impressive to watch, but it also felt like he was working really, really hard to do it. So, all right, that is all 14 games for the week. I feel pretty good about this slate of games. There's a couple of games in here that I'm like, I don't really know, but I feel like there's also a couple in here that I'm like, wait a second. Those feel like that Arizona -1.5, that seems to indicate that Kyler's not going to play, but I still feel like I feel like that is a Kyler line because they wouldn't have them as 4.5 point favorites on neutral field if Kyler wasn't playing. So I don't know. It seems too easy to pick Arizona in that situation. It seems too easy to pick the Chargers -2 over Philly. I know it's a West Coast to East Coast game, but it doesn't seem like anything. Last week ruined your confidence in picking spreads. We were 9-6 last week, crossover. What were you? You didn't pick. You must have picked against me. Dude, that's fine. There's always one week. There's always one bad week. And it's like, hey, we went like it's always right in the middle of what feels like a really good streak too, right? Of like you're like 8-6, 9-6, 9-7, 8-5 or whatever it is, and then all of a sudden it's like boom, 2-12. And you're like, what the hell? It's always like that. I tweeted today. I'm thinking about. I don't know if how much you guys have followed on Twitter, but over the last, well, not last year, but a couple of years before that, I think for 3 seasons, I was building my own model for the NFL to be able to compare teams. I never actually turned it into point spreads. I just turned it into how much better is this team than that team in terms of my own ratings, basically. And I'm thinking about rebuilding that. I don't know that I have time to rebuild it because it's a lot of work, and I'm not an analyst nerd dude. Um, I should have listened to you when you took Pats plus. Was that Pats plus 4 crossover? I feel like Pats were plus 4 if I remember correctly last week. But yeah, like for me, like doing the model was a really good exercise for me because I have my instincts and what I see in the games and everything. But then the model was always really good to go back and go, hey, you say that the Colts are really bad, but based on this model and the numbers and the analytics, this model says that they're actually a top 10 team. So it would make me go back and rethink a lot of what I thought. And sometimes the model would be right, sometimes my instincts would be right, and what I actually saw would be right. So it was a lot of fun to actually go through that process, and it helped me look at football a little bit different. All it was it was basically based on the success of any individual play. And I wasn't using EPA or anything like that. It was just different metrics based on like basically like if it's first down, it's like half, right? So if you gain half the yards you need for a first down, um, then that's a successful play to me, right? So, and I don't know how EPA does it specifically, but like if it's 1st and 10 and you gain 5, all right, that's a win. If it's 1st and 10 and you gain 4, that's a neutral play. 1st and 10 and you only gain 2, that's a negative play. So for me, that was basically you rank those plays and see how they stacked up, and it gave me a really clean look at how the NFL should be and where teams should be. And it was like, hey, this team's actually playing pretty well, even though their record doesn't show that. And they're playing another team, and also factored in some big play metrics into it. And basically said this team's very volatile based on big plays, one way or another. And based on the model, this team is actually more consistently better, but this one has won games based off of big plays. And just taking all of that into account was really kind of cool. So I'm thinking about doing that again. I think it'll be fun, but I just don't know that I have time because every week you have to pull all of the stats and everything and then rerun the entire model. And I'm not good enough with R or any of that stuff. Like I'm basically using R to pull in the information and then I'm throwing it in Excel and doing the work myself. So and I'm not even good enough with macros and stuff like that. So I need to hire like an analyst or something. With what money, right? But yeah, that'll be fun. If I do, I'll definitely make sure. Big analytics guy. Yeah. I mean, for me, I think it's a really good tool in the toolbox. And why not, right? Like if you have the right tools, you may need different tools for different jobs, and every piece of data and and information. And that's the thing is like I have access to some pretty cool data, and I have access to all 22 film, and I can look at some of the stuff and go, okay, well, the data says this, but it's very clearly not aligning to what the film says. So being able to take those two things and kind of interlace them is really good. And I don't that's the thing is I don't feel like crossover film and stats are what a dangerous combo. I the analytics guys tend to be analytics guys and the film guys tend to be film guys. Why not use both? Porque no los dos, right? Like why not both? Um and I will say that a lot of the analysts, the analytics guys, they tend to be very smart football minds because they are able to watch a normal football game and see things based on what the numbers dictate and be able to call out, hey, this makes sense, this doesn't make sense. But they're also not traditionally film guys. So for me, it's let's pull in both and see what works and see what doesn't. But some of the smartest football guys are the analytics guys because they understand situational football. And the thing is I for what we do and being kind of you know very very interested fans, good fans of the NFL is we want to see. I don't need to tell you what every player is going to be able to do, what play calls are called. I don't even need to know all the names of all the route concepts. I just think that for you need a basic understanding of how routes work against a defense and what defenses mean um and what they're trying to do for different styles of defenses. Like you don't need to know what a cover 8 zone dog blitz is. Whatever. You got 3 high safeties, you got a few guys and you're blitzing from the edge. Like those type of things, you know just enough to be dangerous. Like I'm not going to go into I heard Mike Lombardi talking about how he was actually banging on PFF. And he said that he brought I think it was one of the PFF guys in, if I remember correctly, and said that he was like, like talk to me about PFF. You guys think you're so great, then talk to me about PFF. Come on, let's sit down and watch some film together. Because he was talking about, we've hired all these guys that know what they're doing, know what they're talking about. They're former coaches, former players. They know all of this stuff. And he goes, okay, well, let's watch some film together. He's like, okay, what kind of coverage is that? And he goes, oh, it's man coverage. And he's like, no, it's not. It's zone. Okay, next play. Oh, that's zone coverage. No, it's not. It's man. Okay, next play. And he's like, okay, that's a sail route. And he's like, no, that's not a sail route. Like, that's not a sail concept. And he was talking about how like for his intents and purposes, the PFF guy didn't seem like he knew what he was talking about. I think PFF knows a good amount, but a lot of that stuff it can be a little bit subjective because they're how do you rate a play when they're playing man on one side and zone on the other? And zone can often look like man because of the way the corners work. So it's just it can be very subjective. So the analytics are good to have. It's good to always check your thinking and go with what your instincts are, but use the data to either back it up or rethink or retest what you're doing. Right. Um, so yeah, really interesting stuff. Kellen Moore reps reached out to TCU for that job. Say what now? Is that accurate? I don't believe you, Gabe. Kellen Moore, future head coach. Source: TCU working to interview Deion Sanders, TA. Huh. I mean, of course they want to interview him, but it would be weird if Chris Hummer has it. I have to look it up. Analytics are great because I think it's easier for the casual fan to transition to versus transitioning. Yeah, I mean, film you need a background and an education in it. Analytics basically take easily digestible pieces of information and provide it to fans to give them a better sense of what's happening in the game, right? So if I tell you um the Pats play, the Pats play the most single high coverage of any team in the NFL, right? Like that's an analytic piece of information that most fans are going to understand. Most fans I think, would understand 1 high safety versus 2 high safety. Now, they might not understand the depths of exactly what that does and what that means, but it's easy to put in general terms of it basically means that they're going to play a much tighter defense and they're not going to have as much protection against the big play. But they do that in other ways by being able to blitz and stuff like that. So who'd you say? Chris Hummer. I don't know who Chris Hummer is. Also of interest, Representatives Dallas Cowboys OC Kellen Moore have reached out to the Horned Frogs. Interesting. I need to read that article. I wonder because they could have just reached out to say, "Hey, like, let us know if you need, like, if you want Kellen's opinion on who you're going to hire, or something like that." And maybe he wants to be a college football guy. Maybe he thinks college football is it. Some people are college football guys, and some people are NFL guys. He clearly looks like an NFL guy to me because that scheme is built for close matchup. Like his ability to scheme it up and strategically architect an offense is fun. Another potential candidate is Dallas Cowboys offense coordinator Kellen Moore, whose representatives have reached out to TCU per source. But that's all it says. Per a source. Yeah, I mean maybe, but I doubt it. It just doesn't feel like a guy like that would be ready to go to college. I don't know. How do you guys feel? Like for me, I feel like in the NFL, you don't have to recruit. Look, you can go be a god at college. I get it. The huge appeal for a lot of people with big egos. Go be a god somewhere and be able to get away with murder basically and do whatever you want at a college football campus. But if you're in the NFL, um, it's not a you're not working year round. You get a pretty decent off season. Right. You're now how you spend your off season is usually you end up watching film of all the other teams and games that you missed and trying to pick up stuff and add to your playbook and all that stuff. But it's not game or like it's not game prep and recruiting and all of that stuff. So yeah. So for me, I look at it as like the NFL would be the better job, but there are so many people that think the college job is better because hey, one, you're coaching kids and you're teaching them to be good and good study habits and good work habits and good work ethic and those type of things, and you can have more impact on a player's you know on a player's outcome and their trajectory in life. And there's obviously a ton to be said in that. I think that's really cool. But there's also a lot more that goes into it in terms of recruiting. But the thing is after you recruit, once you get the player there, they're pretty much stuck. I mean, they can transfer, but not many of them want to lose that year of eligibility or sit out for a year to have to do it. So maybe he's interested. I don't know. I just feel like he's in such a good spot with the Cowboys, and he's gonna get all the offers that he wants in the NFL next year. You had New York Jets plus 10.5, right? Yeah, I that's one of the games that I'm gonna wait for. Um, that's one of the games I'm gonna wait for until to pick until Sunday. But that's what I'm leaning is Jets to cover. Oh, you're right. It is the Thursday night game. So that's the first game on my list. Um, yeah, I wanted to do more work on it, but I didn't even think about it being Thursday night. Like I said, heads in baby shower. So, um, yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm leaning. So here's the thing. Actually, thinking about it like that, Gabe, on a short week, I on Thursday night I tend to go with the better coaching staff. And I think Frank Reich is by far the better coaching staff right now. He and his staff are miles better. Um, of the Thursday night games, and I don't have it pulled up. I'd be curious to know like how many of them have been blowouts because I feel like most of the um, primetime games have all been very very close games, right? I know. I feel like early on, most of the primetime games were super close. If Mike White covers in back to back games, that'll be something. I mean, the thing is I'm not as high on the Colts as everybody else is, so it wouldn't be that big of a surprise to me. I think the Colts will be able to run the ball. I think their offensive line is better. Will be able to match up well against the defensive line. I think they'll be able to run the ball. I think that'll take the ball out of Carson Wentz's hands a little bit. I think Reich's going to come in with a better game plan. This is Salah's first Thursday night game, right? So how well are they going to be prepared for that? You know what? I got to go Colts. I got to go Colts. Since it's Thursday night, it just changes everything that I think about this particular game. This is Salah's first game on a Thursday night as a head coach. I don't know that he's going to be able. Carson Wentz, my goodness, his 2 picks were atrocious. That's the only thing is I don't, you know, the Jets were the only team until without an interception until last week. By the way, that Shaq Lawson got their first interception of the season. Yes, and traveling for the Jets, exactly, Gabe. Because traveling eats into that time as well. Yeah, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go Colts. I'm gonna go Colts, and that's mostly because of coaching. But I do think that they match up well. O-line matches up well. They'll be able to run the ball. The only question is do they run the ball so well that they don't throw it as much, and don't get out to that big heavy lead. And I do think the Jets will be able to move the ball back on them, so it could be a back and forth. 10.5 is going to be a hard cover, but yeah, it just feels like on a short week I'd take the Colts. All right, that's it for the night. I wonder if anybody else is on right now. I appreciate you guys hanging out tonight. Sorry that we had to move it to Wednesday night and had to bump it a little bit later, but I wanted just an extra 30 minutes to kind of clear up everything. And but yeah, I think we're good. I feel a little uncomfortable not having as much time to prepare for it, but hey, maybe it's a good thing, maybe it's a bad thing. I don't know, but we will see. I don't know if you guys do any gaming, but Call of Duty Vanguard comes out later this week, right? Sometime. So hopefully you guys enjoy that. I'll be working on baby shower stuff basically from literally when I get off of stream until Saturday, and then I'll get some. Once that's done on Saturday night, I'll get a little bit more work in. So yeah. So appreciate you guys. Thanks for hanging out. As always, throw any questions on Twitter at NFLosophy on Twitter. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate it. I'm gonna I've got you guys on mute, right? Cool. All right. I am going to jump off of here. Oh yeah. Baby shower prep. Baby shower prep it will be going well until Saturday morning, and I'll tell you exactly what's gonna happen. On Saturday morning, what's gonna happen is my wife is gonna freak out because we're hosting people at our house. It's all outside because the weather in Tampa is beautiful right now. I think the high on Saturday is 70 degrees. So like right around noontime, it's gonna be perfect. We had the pool installed and landscaping and all that, so backyard's perfect to host it. Um, and I think we're in a really is the weather ever bad? Yeah, it storms a lot here, Gabe. So during the summer at 4:30, 5:30, there's like a 15 to 30 minute down, like a torrential downpour. Everything floods for an hour and then it goes away and then you're fine. And then the next day it does it all over again. It can get some pretty bad thunderstorms here, but it did the same thing in Kentucky, so I'm used to them. Like people from California would dive under desks sometimes when thunder would hit whenever we were at the facility, because we had some guys that were literally never been out of California and they came and thunder would clap and then they would dive, and they were like, the only loud noise that we hear that's that loud is earthquakes. So um it was funny the first time I ever saw somebody dive under a desk. But yeah, baby shower prep's going well so far. But on Saturday morning, the wife's gonna start freaking out because we're gonna have people over. She loves to host, but then when she does host, like she just wants to tear her hair out on the morning of, because she starts freaking out. Do we have enough? Do we have enough food? Yes, the $1,000 worth of food that you ordered for the 7 people that are coming is gonna last us for the next month. Um, Type of thing. And she wants to try to do it all herself, and I'm just like, just get catering, have your mom cook it, do whatever. But I don't want, at this point, she's almost 8 months pregnant, right? Or, well, she's a little over 7 months pregnant. So it's like, relax, don't do any of this yourself. Like your friends are coming over, let them take care of it. So hopefully she gets to actually relax a little bit and enjoy it. But it should be fun. It'd be good to see a bunch of her family, because most of mine's all still in Kentucky and aren't able to make it down. So they're like, we're not going to travel for this. My family's like, we're not coming to see you. Like, we're coming after the baby's born because we want to see the baby. We don't want to see you. We want to see the baby. I'm like, all right, I guess that kind of makes sense. So yeah. So yeah, it should be good. Thanks for asking. I appreciate it. But yeah, it's all good. We'll have a good time. I'm excited about I'm excited to get it over because this is like the last like big step for us of have the baby shower, and then from there it's like we're just waiting to basically just waiting to uh waiting for the baby to come. And Lord knows that'll be an event too. So uh it's gonna be interesting. Super excited about it though. All right, let's see. Why is this being weird? By the way, if you're streaming when water breaks, please end the stream ASA. Dude, Gabe, no, we're fine. Like, she gets like a whole, this is her first. So like we know that there's like 2 hours before we got to get to the hospital. So we'll be fine. We'll be fine. But yeah, if I would actually get off stream. Yes, I would totally get off stream for that. I would get off stream so that I could go put tarp in my truck to get her to the hospital instead of me having to worry about the leather seats in my truck. Leave the stream on. I wouldn't leave it on. I mean, I wouldn't leave it on purposefully, but I could probably be like, you know, I would probably go out of my mind. I'll like throw some highlights or something up for you guys play them and be like, you can watch highlights while you listen to my wife and I argue in the background. No, she's amazing, man. I'm so lucky. She's so chill and puts up with me, and I am super lucky, and she's been great throughout the entire pregnancy. She's been amazing. Super chill, like hasn't had a ton of problems. We've been very fortunate there too. Let's see. All right, I am going to hop off of here. I appreciate you guys hanging out. And I will see you guys Sunday morning for the pregame show. So for anybody that's in now, that wasn't here earlier, the weird thing is my streamer stats don't line up to who is actually in here. Because I always see more of this that is in here than what the stats show. So it's hard for me to always tell who's actually in here and who's not. But anyways, appreciate you guys hanging out. Thank you guys so much. G Girl and Gold Glover, who I've introduced you guys to before, are actually streaming right now. So I'm gonna raid them, drop you guys in there. Always a little bit of fun. They are definitely characters. So if you have a few minutes, stick around, hang out with them for a second. If not, then good night. I will see you guys on the pregame show on Sunday. I will be fully prepared with all the matchups and all that good stuff on Sunday, and we'll probably have a few gray hairs by the time we get there. So appreciate it. Thank you guys so much. Y'all have a good night. Oh, and enjoy Thursday Night Football.